JD Payne, Patrick McKay, you're the showrunners for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which streamed its second season in 2024. Now, you moved production from New Zealand to the UK for this season. First off, what prompted such a big move?
Sort of
Uh,
above our pay grade.
yeah,
Amazon was building a production hub out in the UK, and so wanted to centralize a lot of the production of some of their shows there.
and
So
they wanted
we
their biggest.
yes, we were the twig on the shoulders of a mighty stream.
Yes. But I think, creatively, we were excited by that opportunity slash challenge. We're now, season two was shot in some of the very places that Tolkien was writing about. And so, we always love the idea that we're kind of bringing Lord of the Rings home.
Were there any significant logistical differences, with that move?
I mean, COVID was probably the biggest one. During season one, we were in New Zealand, and COVID was happening around the world, and so it was very hard to get people and things sort of in and out of the country, which was challenging. Because sometimes you would have needs of personnel that you would need to get in the country, and it'd be very difficult to make it happen, whether actors or other department people. But it was
The COVID monkey wrench we had season one was drastically simplified season two as it was for probably every other production in the world.
yeah.
And telling a story with so many moving parts, you've got different characters, storylines, a lot of world building, visual effects. What have been some of the most challenging aspects of the show in general?
Well, I think the challenge is always living up to our aspirations.
Yeah.
We love this material. We love Tolkien's world. We love Middle Earth, and we want it to be spectacular. We want it to be endlessly inventive and delightful for a massive global audience. And the bar is very, very, very high. And you're working. This season took 4 years from the initial conversations about the story through to release. And every day of that, we were, giving our damnedest to making it as good as we possibly can. Middle Earth has a very, very, very high bar.
Yeah, and yeah, the other thing I would add to that is just like the scope. Tolkien's imagination is just massive. And any single one storyline in some ways could be its own TV show. You could just have the Sauron and Celebrimbor and Eregion, that the sort of Halt and Catch Fire, Lord of the Rings of two sort of geniuses, or Breaking Bad, two geniuses working to create the sort of perfect product within the rings, and the drama that ensues. That's a TV show. A wizard on a journey of self-discovery with two, lovable Harfoots and Tom Bombadil and a dark wizard. That's a TV show too. And so, sort of trying to find, the right balance between all the different storylines, all the different elements of Middle Earth, and make them all feel like one
A
story.
constant juggling act.
Yeah, constant juggling act.
And as you mentioned, the show, any different storyline could be its own show. With so much lore to draw from, like how do you decide what to include, what to expand on, what to leave out that you might want to include?
I mean, it's just a process of endless iteration over months and months and months and months and months. We can say we're working on a season three. We're prepping a season three right now and going through, the exact same process again. You're going deep into the books. You're going deep into the lore and the history. You're hopefully finding chestnuts that you're excited about that deserve to be brought to the screen in hopefully spectacular fashion. And then you're trying to make it good as you possibly can.
And some of it is a little bit of R&D and experiment. I mean, you've probably heard there's a old story, the parable of the sower, where sower goes and spreads a bunch of seeds around, and some of them grow up, and some of them don't, and some of them start to grow and then fizzle. Stories, it's a similar process where you're planting a lot of seeds, and Tolkien give us a lot of ideas that we will go and then sort of experiment and plant with, and some seem really promising, and then that one actually doesn't have legs, doesn't go anywhere, and some of them take a little while, but then they actually end up becoming huge and bearing tons of fruit.
Season two, we had this central story of Sauron and Celebrimbor, and it's a battle of wills and a seduction and a deception and sort of a psychological thriller. And over the course of 4 years of making this season, that more and more took gravity and pulled everything into its orbit, and that became the anchor around which every episode kind of to one extent or another bounces off of or is tied to. But that's a thing that comes out and emerges organically from the work. season one, I think, had, a similar thing with a relationship between Galadriel and Sauron that quickly became, oh, this is kind of the through line. And some of that's just mysterious. Story has its own energy, and as JD said, sometimes a mighty tree grows up from which you hang everything else.
And having devoted so many years now to the Lord of the Rings, have you discovered lore and details that you maybe weren't as familiar with when you were just fans of the material?
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what you're dealing with is, a man's life's work, essentially, right? Tolkien is this linguist and this academic, and he invented not just a world, but sort of an entire genre.
Mhm.
And I think, the deeper we go into the texts and the more we, learn about it, I think you're just constantly in awe of the depth of his imagination. It's amazing.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, and
no one has ever done what he did.
And I think, like, especially the languages, when you live in these worlds long enough, you start to sort of see the etymology of some of these words, and you may have been familiar with them as a fan before, but then you realize, oh, in Elvish that actually means this, and it actually had one meaning in Quenya and another meaning in Cinder, and it actually appears in this person's name and in this historical artifact and in this location, and you see how it sort of reflects the sort of story points of each of those things in different ways, and you just sort of marvel at the depth of this man's ability to create a world.
It has no bottom. We are a very, very, very small part of the history of Middle Earth. It is much bigger than us, and we're reminded of that every day.
Now, Galadriel and Sauron are together a lot in season one, but of course, they're on these sort of different parallel tracks in season two. What were your thoughts about putting them on this kind of collision course that ends up paying off in the end of the season?
Well, really, the whole season for Galadriel is a reckoning in a way, right? She essentially empowered the villain. She'd been tricked, and everyone believes she's tainted by darkness because of it and can't be trusted because of it. And this story for her is really a redemption. She's got to kind of like reach deep within herself and hopefully grow past that. And the idea that the final test of this season for her would be being face to face with him, the one who tricked her. Can she reject him, openly and wholeheartedly? And she does, at the cost of, almost being willing to give her own life, to prevent him from winning and to find a victory even in all that defeat. We reckon that was a good, destination point for both his character and hers. Where in a way they both win and in a way they both lose. We're always looking for endings that are either a happy ending that's tinged with tragedy or a tragic ending that there's a little bit of triumph in it anyways. And I think when she finally throws herself from the cliff to prevent him from winning, there's a little bit of victory, even as many characters have died and a city has fallen and Sauron has claimed an entire army as his own. It's a pretty downer ending, but Galadriel, I think, takes a big step forward as a person and as a character.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, there's a lot of mix of tragedy and sort of hope for what's to come. Of course, there's a lot of tragedy given that we know Sauron won't be defeated for quite some time. What is it like to balance that heartbreak with the resilience, generally throughout the series?
I mean, hard.
Yeah, well, that's the special sauce of Tolkien, and you always, I think the challenge is to make sure that it never comes off as
Grim.
well, either overly grim on one hand or sort of schmaltzy and unearned, on the other side. Like, yeah, you can write a character gets punished, knocked down, and then gets back up again. But if you don't really believe that they would get back up again, or if you don't make it hard for them to get back up again, in a way that is not just circumstantial, but is deep in their character, and then show what they're becoming as they get back up again. That's the real challenge is to balance the opposition and then the resilience and the growth within the characters and make it come in from an authentic character place.
And as you also mentioned, the siege of Eregion is such this huge, massive battle and full of action and visual effects. And how complex was that to execute? Like how long were you shooting
it was the greatest undertaking the show's ever attempted, and that's that's saying something. Whether it's the horse charge, the sword fight between Galadriel and Sauron. Meanwhile, there's a psycho melodrama happening between Sauron and Celebrimbor inside the city. There's the avalanche and the damming of the river. There's the catapults.
Yeah.
Each one of these pieces is a battle in and of itself that requires every single department working for months and months and months and months to bring everything they can to the screen. I don't even know how long it took.
Yeah.
Weeks and weeks of shooting. But that's not, almost every shot's a visual effect. Eregion is not a real city. It is a set, on a stage, and then city streets on a back lot, and then a wall in a field. Those are three different locations, none of which is a complete city. That's all visual effects, and the Jason Smith, our amazing visual effects supervisor world. And so you're uniting all of these pieces, and it has to be this seamless handoff between the digital world and the practical world. And there's costumes, you're different kinds of armor, and there's prosthetic makeup. You're fighting with orcs. That's Barry and Sarah Gower who do our prosthetics. The artistry of every single orc is bespoke and requires iteration.
A stunt team where you're watching people jump off of roofs
and weapons.
We're doing. We watched that so you watch that elf leap off the roof and stick the landing in episode 8. That's a practical stunt where it's someone actually doing that
with a cameraman on a descender rig behind him. It is very, very, very challenging to do these massive sequences, and this is one that stretched through 3 episodes.
And the amazing Vic Armstrong also.
Vic Armstrong does our second unit action work. Yeah. He's a legend in the field, and he's the most interesting man in the world. Where ask him any question about any project that he'd ever been involved in, and he has 4 anecdotes that blow your mind. And he's got great taste, just really old school filmmaking craft. Sometimes when we're dealing with something hugely ambitious like that Siege and all the parts that are involved in it, we just feel very, very lucky to work with such incredible people. In the case of Vic Armstrong, a legend. Yeah. In the case of Charlotte Brandstrom, who directed the last 2 episodes, she's
top of her game.
Masterclass in craft, every part of it, performance, stunts, just raw filmmaking, goods, and we just feel very lucky to be a part of it. Those last 2 episodes of season 2, yeah. we think are the best episodes of the show yet. Yeah. And that's in large part due to our amazing collaborators.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I want to know if there's anything at all you can sort of tease about what direction season 3 might be going in, and what we can kind of expect without giving too much away, of course.
All we can say is that we're very excited about it. We're working on it. We're prepping it right now, and it's going to continue on the same trajectory that the show has been on. We think it's getting even better, and it's just some really, really, really thrilling, exciting things in it. But that's all we can say.
Thank you both for talking with me about the show. Congratulations on 2 really exciting seasons and more to come. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.